Hello, good day everyone. So are you familiar the prenatal stage? So for today's discussion, I will be going to talk the prenatal stage. So while you might think of child development as something that begins during infancy, the prenatal period is also considered an important part of the developmental process. Prenatal development is a time of remarkable change that helps set the stage for future psychological development. The brain develops over the course of the prenatal period, but it will continue to go through more changes during the early years of childhood. The process of prenatal development occurs in three main stages. The first 2 weeks after conception are known as the germinal stage. The the third through the 8th week is known as the embryonic period, and the time from the 9th week until birth is known as the fetal period. So now, we will be going to talk the germinal stage. So this is the first one. The germinal stage begins at conception when the sperm and egg cell unit in one of the two fallopian tubes. The fertilized egg is called a zygote. Just a few hours after the conception, the single-celled zygote begins making a journey down the fallopian tube to the uterus. So the germinal stage is the stage of development that occurs from conception until 2 weeks or implantation. Conception occurs when a sperm fertilizes an egg and forms a zygote. A zygote begins as a one-cell structure that is created when a sperm and egg merge. The process of cell division is called mitosis. Cell division begins approximately 24 to 36 hours often conception. Through the process of mitosis, the zygote first divides into two cells, then into 4, 8, 16, and so on. A significant number of zygotes never progress past this early part of cell division, with as many as half of all zygotes surviving less than 2 weeks. Once the 8th cell point has been reached, the cells begin to differentiate and take on certain characteristics that will determine the type of cells they eventually become as cells multiply. They will also separate into two distinctive masses. So the outer cells will eventually become the placenta, while the inner cells form the embryo. Cell division continues at a rapid rate during the approximately week-long journey from fallopian tube to uterus wall. The cells develop into what is known as blastocysts. So the blastocyst is made up of 3 layers, each of which develops into different structure in the body. First one is the ectoderm, skin and nervous system. Next is the endoderm, digestive and respiratory systems. Next is the mesoderm, muscle and skeletal systems. Finally, the blastocyst arrives at the uterus and attached to the uterine wall, a process known as implantation. So, implantation occurs when the cells nestles into the uterine lining and rupture tiny blood vessels. The connective wave of blood vessels and membranes that form between them will provide nourishment for the developing being for the next 9 months. So, implantation is not always an automatic and surefire process. So, when implantation is successful, hormonal changes halt the normal menstrual cycle and cause a whole host of physical changes. So, for some people, activities they previously enjoyed such as smoking, drinking alcohol, or coffee may become less palatable, possibly part of nurture's way of protecting the growing life inside them. Right? So next, let's proceed to the embryonic stage. So, embryonic stage. The embryonic stage lasts through the 8th week following fertilization. after which embryo is called a fetus. So, tawagon na nato ng embryo as a fetus. So, the embryonic stage is short, lasting only about 7 weeks in total. So, in embryonic stage, kay lahi ra siya sa uban. So, kadiyo ta jud ni siya, no? Mukuan na ni siya 7 weeks in total. So, but development that occurs during this stage bring about enormous changes in the embryo. So, daghan kaayog mausab. So, from germinal stage, pag abot sa embryonic stage, daghan kaayog mausab. So, at this point, the mass of cell is now known as an embryo. No, tawagon na nato siya embryo. The beginning of the 3rd week after conception mark the start of the embryonic period. So, a time when the mass of cells become distinctive as a human. The embryonic stage plays an important role in the development of the brain. So, sa embryonic stage, daghan kaayog makuan ning ato there sa brain. So, approximately 4 weeks after conception, the neural tube forms. This tube will later develop into the central nervous system, including the spinal cord and brain. So, the neutral tube begins to form along with an area known as the neutral plate. The earliest signs of development of the neutral tube are the emergence of 2 ridges that form along each side of the neutral plate. So, over the next few days, more ridges form and fold inward until a hollow tube is formed. So, once this tube is fully formed, cells begin to form near the center. The tube begins to close and brain vesicles form. So, these vesicles will eventually develop into parts of the brain, including the structures of the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. So, kaning ang vesicles, mao na ni siya ang magkaanam nakadevelop ang atong utok. So, around the 4th week, the head begins to form quickly, followed by the eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. So, of course, una jud ma-form ang atong head before ning mga ubang parts sa atong nang, of course, no? Alangan namang muunang imong mata without your head, so saon man na, kalutaw lang. So, the blood vessel that will become the heart start to pulse. During the 5th week, buds that will form the arms and legs appear. So, after the 5th week, no, daghan na kay mausab na imong arms, then ang imong legs, naanay mo tubo, like mong pakita. So, by the 8th week of development, the embryo has all of the basic organs and parts. So, from the 8th week ra na ha, ang embryo na siya yung mga basic nato nga organs and parts sa atong body, except those of the sex organs, di ba? So, dili pa ma-identify kung babae ba na siya or lalaki. So, at this point, the embryo weighs just 1 gram and is about 1 inch in length. So, by the end of the embryonic period, the basic structure of the brain and central nervous system has been established. So, at this point, the basic structure of the peripheral nervous system is also defined. So, daghan jud kaayog mausab pag-abot sa embryonic stage. Alright. So, the production of neurons or brain cells begins around day 42 after conception, is mostly complete sometime around the middle of pregnancy. So, researchers estimate that approximately 60%, wow, 60% of all natural conceptions never become properly implanted in the uterus. So, which results in the new life ending before the mother is ever aware she is pregnant. Oh, so, di ba, ang uban dili dayon kabantay nga mabdos di ay siya. So, as neurons form, they migrate to different areas of the brain. So, ang neurons na to, ma-form na, ngadto na siya, kuan sa atong brain, sa atong different areas. So, once they have reached the correct location, they begin to form connection with other neural cells, establishing rudimentary neural networks. So, next is the fetal stage. So, in the fetal stage, a fetus is prenatal human being between the embryonic stage and birth. So, nakita ninyo no sa kuan, ma-form na siya. So, mapurma na jud ang bata as in kumpleto na tanan. So, the fetal stage extends from the beginning of the 9th week after fertilization to about 38 weeks after fertilization. So, mao na ning inaabot sa 9th week, igawas na ang bata sa. So, which is the average time of birth. The fetal stage lasts a total of approximately of 30 weeks. So, 30 weeks man ng 9 months. So, now, once cell differentiation is mostly complete, the embryo enters the next stage and becomes known as a fetus. Now, from germinal stage to embryonic stage and next to fetal stage. So, muna ning may form na ang fetus. So, the fetal period of prenatal development marks more important changes in the brain. So, this period of development begins during the 9th week and lasts until birth. Antod nga ipanganak. So, this period of development begins during the 9th week and lasts until birth. So, this stage is marked by amazing change and growth. The early body systems and structures established in the embryonic stage continue to develop. The neural tube develops into the brain and spinal cord. And neurons continue to form. Mag-continue gihapon siya. So, only these neurons have formed. They begin to migrate to their correct location. Synapse or the connection between neurons also begin to develop sa atong brain. So, between the 9th and 12th week of the gestation or at the earliest, reflexes begin to emerge. So, the fetus begins to make reflexive motion with arms and its legs like, kabantay mo sa inyong mga mother, like, nakabantay ba mo nga ang ilang tiyan, mupatid-patid ang bata, mulihok ang bata, di ba? Ma-feel man. Right. So, I don't know if naka-experience na, siguro ang akong ubang classmate, right? Like, katong naanay mga anak, I know na-experience na to nila na katong mulihok ang bata. Alright, so during the 3rd month of the gestation, the 6 organs begin to differentiate. So the 6 organs. By the end of the month, all parts of the body will be formed. At this point, the fetus weigh around 3 ounces. So bugat na jud ang fetus. So the fetus continues to grow in both width and length. So mao na magkadako ang atong tiyan sa. So ang atong tiyan flexible jud ni siya. So although the majority of the physical growth occurs in the later stages of pregnancy. So the end of the 3rd month also marks the end of the 1st trimester of pregnancy. During the 2nd trimester or months 4 through 6, the heartbeat grows stronger and other body system. So of course no, ang heartbeat sa bata magkaanam siya og form kusog. So become further developed fingernails like ang nails sa bata, hair, eyelashes, and toenails form 5 hyperharps. Mostly, noticeably, the fetus increases about 6 times in size. So, grabe kaayo ang kautruhan sa. So, what's going on inside the brain during the important period of prenatal development? So, unsay naa? Right, so, the brain and central nervous system also become more responsive during the 2nd trimester. So, around 28 weeks, the brain start to mature faster. Wow, no, grabe kay, di ba, na kuan naman to katong neurons sa atong brain cells. So, ang brain ko no start to mature faster with an activity that greatly resembles that of a sleeping newborn. Alright, so during the period from 7 months until birth, the fetus continues to develop, put on weight, and prepare for life outside the womb. Alright, so the lungs begin to expand and contract, preparing the muscles for breathing. Wow, so while development usually follows this normal pattern, there are times when problems with prenatal development occur. So naadyoy magka-problema, di ba? Disease, malnutrition, and other prenatal influences can have a powerful impact on how the brain develops during this critical period. So through this disease, malnutrition, so epekto gihapon di ay ni sa brain, sa pagdevelop sa brain. Alright? So, this is a word from Very Well. So, this said that brain development does not end at birth. Dili ra kay maendra diha sa pagpanganak nimo. A considerable amount of brain development take place postnatally. Wow. Including growing in size and volume while changing in structure. the brain quadruples in size between birth and preschool. As children learn and have new experiences, some networks in the brain are strengthened while other connections are prone. So, alright, so that's all for today and thank you for listening. I hope you have nakalearn sad mo. Okay, so thank you so much.